so welcome to your Brink Studio. My name's Anita if you haven't come across me before, and whilst I was at the NEC recently I taught how to make these little lanterns out of Lutradur. So this little lantern, there's two ways of doing it. Just switch that on so that you can see. Okay, with these little lights which we're going to put in between two layers of Lutradur. So I'll just leave that there. Now Lutradur, if you've not come across it, it's a non-woven fibre and it comes in lots of different weights. I'll say lots, a few. We have, I'm going to put this down here so you can actually see the Lutradur on that blue. So it's a non-woven fibre, and this is the lightweight. It's a 30 GSM, so I'll just wave that about so you can see how lightweight it is. And then this one is a medium weight, which is a 70 GSM. These two are what we're going to be using today. You can also get 150 GSM, and then there's an extra large. So that's what we're going to be using today. We will also be using some of these. These are Bista inks. I'm rather partial to these, but you can use any acrylic based, ink based product. It does not have to be these, and if you've got acrylic paints, just water them down so that they are the same consistency as an ink. We need a pencil and we need a stencil. I've picked this one because I'm only going to show you this bit. I'm not going to hand stitch because we're going over to the machine shortly to do everything on the machine, which will speed things up a bit. You need some scissors. Any scissors will do. Don't use your best fabric scissors, for heaven's sake. And some little lights. So I have these. I've already pulled the end bit out and tested that they work. The hardest bit of using these is unraveling it all, because you always end up unraveling it the opposite way to where you think you're going to unravel it. So I'll just start that off, and then oh, it's working. No knots. So it's just like a wire really, and I have got a knot, look. So it's just a wire. I'll sort that out in a minute. You need some glue of some description. Now this wafty stuff here is called Fuse FX, which I prefer to use for this. Any glue will do, because I don't think you're going to be wanting to use pins to do this. And you need a kit from Danells, where they make lampshade kits, and the lampshade kits, these are lantern kits, you have 2 rings in there. You will have some of this red tape, and there's a blue version as well. You get one of these little things for tucking everything up, and you get 2 of these. This is the very base, and then this one can sit on top. So if you don't want to put this in there, you can put one of those candles that's battery. Never ever put a real candle in here, because you will have some problems. And then you get some what they call stick it, and this is the base of our lantern. And you need an iron, so that iron is switched on over there, and you need a heat gun for when we distress it. Now you might not want to distress it, but one of these is fine. And the other thing is have something to protect your work surface, and let's pop that over there. You also will need 2 pieces of baking parchment, okay, because we are going to be ironing in between these two, and right top on the top one. This is important. You might think it's silly, but it's not, because we're going to be ironing glue, and you don't want glue all over your iron. I've got glue all over my iron, but that's the only one that has. Luckily the husband will clean that off, not that he knows it yet. But if you want to keep your irons clean and your work clean, that's what we need. The other thing we need in this case is a sewing machine. So that's set up behind us and we will move on to that very shortly. So the first thing that we're going to do is move that out of the way and get our Lutradors. So this is the 70 GSM. I'm not going to add colour to this. This piece, and you don't need all this much, I've got way too much here, but I can use this for something else. So this is the 30 GSM, and I am now going to add a whole load of colour to that. Starting at one end, I'm just going to spray. So that was a yellow, even though it doesn't look yellow, Bista ink, and this one is a green. And it doesn't want to work. I will, over there on the top, see? Right on top of you, no, on the top, there. Have you got a green in there, please? I'm just asking my lovely assistant to find me a green that works. If not, we'll put another colour in. Is that a green? That looks empty. If not, a blue. There we go, green. Thank you. I am not going to wait for this to dry. I'm just going to spritz it all. I'm going to go back over it with some more yellow. The colours are really subtle. This one's on its way out as well. And I'm now going to iron it dry. Because I've done this whilst it's wet, I'm not going to have any solid blocks of colour. What I'm going to get is movement. So you see how that's changed from blobs to movement. And you also get some nice papers afterwards, which we'll talk about soon. Keep my top on the top. I've got my iron on quite hot. And my Lutradur is dry, and look at that, that is so lovely. If you back that with something that's some iron on, you can stitch into that. Very nice. Okay, so I now have some coloured Lutradur. Where that thread's coming from, hopefully. I think it's off the bottom of here, yeah. So I've now got my coloured Lutradur and I've got my plain white Lutradur. I could colour this, but I'm not going to. What I am going to do though is now add this. So I have to now get the knot out of it, which is a bit annoying, but shouldn't take too long. That would teach me. Okay, so these wires are very, very fiddly, and you can try as much as you like, thinking, oh, I'll just, do a nice pattern with these. Maybe I'll make some flowers with them. Well, unless you're going to be pinning them down, you're not, because what happens is that. So I tend to just stick it on. I'm going to draw this so I know where I am. With my trusty pencil. This is because this Lutradur is bigger than this. I would normally cut it to that size, or only a tiny bit bigger. So I'm now going to leave this coming out one end, like so. Then I need my glue. So this is the Fuse FX. This is purely here to sandwich these together and to hold it all together while I'm stitching it, not for any other reason. Okay, now we'll move that to one side and come back to this piece. If you're going to use a stencil to hand stitch, this is what you need now. Stencil on there, draw your pattern. I'm going to be using the machine because you don't want to sit and watch me doing hand stitching. It's just too boring for words. So stencil your design just so that you know where to stitch. Now you can use an ordinary pencil like this. You see it is drawing on there. If I go to a lighter area, you'll see it a bit better. Get off. So here, I can see it, but I don't know if you can. And if you're hand stitching this, you only need to use a back stitch or a stem stitch, or you might want to put some lazy daisies in, or a chain stitch. It all really depends on how much time you've got to do this. Because you're doing it in your own home, you'll have more time. So this is quite an abstract design. Take that off. So I don't know if you can see that. Let me put the blue paper underneath it, which will help. Okay, I'm not going to do that because, as I say, you don't want to see me stitching by hand because we'd be here for days. So I'm going to show you how to do it on the sewing machine. Now, with the sewing machine, you've got to be really careful that you don't sew through your wires if you're doing these, because if you do, you've basically broken the circuit and you won't be able to see all your lights. Now if you want to see where they're going to be, switch it on and you get an idea of how near. Can you get off there? This is very fiddly stuff, but it's worth it. And I'm going to bring that back over like that. We can poke them in again after we've sealed it. We're then going to put this on. Now I'm going to pick this end because I haven't drawn all over this end. Okay. I can still see where my lines are underneath. I am then going to bring this over onto the top, like that, and iron very gently, because all I need to do is melt that glue. I'm not putting any pressure on this, just running it over. The iron's on as hot as it'll go. Check that that's glued down, not yet. It is literally to hold it in place while we're sewing, not for any other reason. If you want to risk lots of pins, then do so, but I don't. There we go. So now I'm going to take that off and I'm going to cut that up there. Okay, like that. So now I have my two pieces of Lutradur sandwiched together. Okay. And we are now going to move over to the sewing machine. So now we're at the machine and you can see that I've got my lights on so I can see where I'm stitching. The sewing machine is set on one of the stitches that are programmed in. I've got a variegated thread on so I can see lots of colour coming through, and I've switched my lights on so I can see where they are. And if you stitch slowly without rushing, the wires will move and you won't have to worry about where they are. So I'll just do one. Okay, so you can see I've left a space here so that you can see what I'm doing. Bring that out so you can see the design. Okay, now what I'm going to do is stitch here. I've got wires, so I'm just turning that a little bit, and I am using the pedal on the machine because I want to control this and not let it go where it wants. And we're stitching it because we want to hold everything in, because you can pull it all apart, and I have gone over a wire. So we're gonna turn this way, I think. Where is my... Right, I'm coming in from this corner. If you're wondering why I'm lifting the foot up as far as it will go, it's because with this machine it also drops the feed dogs further, so it's not catching underneath. So if you've got that on your machine, that would be quite good. Not necessary, but it helps. I'm just checking where I've got my square coming in from. Go a bit faster if you've got areas where you know there's no wires. There are wires here, so we'll bring it back round that way for a bit, shall we? Perhaps there. We'll come across here. Because that's coming out of the lines. So there's my line, so we're going to come across these two. Oh, snapped a thread. This is a pure cotton thread that I'm using here, and the reason for that is when I want to distress this, I don't want my thread to start melting, and if it was a polyester or anything similar, it may just do that. Let's get that out and start again. So here, so I did start there where I went right over it, but that's fine. Make that noise. So I'm now going to come across here because I want this to now hold that in. So I'm just pulling that away a little bit, and I'm going to position this one right there and there. So I now have a lot of lights in a small area, and I'm going to come across the lot. Oh, I've just snapped my thread again. Let's try again. Don't snap. Thread is snapping where it's catching on the wires, which you have to expect. Let's go across these. To move that one in a bit because we have got quite a large area there without a light in it, so we'll just encourage that across there and then get it to stay in place, hopefully. If you're hand stitching this, you wouldn't have to worry about this side of things. You would just stitch away and do whatever you want to do, and you can use whichever stitches that you want to do as well. So, you know, I wouldn't worry. Are we in the area we want to be in? We'll move you in a little bit as well. So I'm just moving these a little bit because they're not quite where I want them. I seem to have two lights there in the same place. So we will encourage one to move. It's not precise this. Now I'm going to sew right between them two with a bit of luck. And we've just snapped the thread again. Might not like going over this bit, but we'll see what happens. I'm going to go a lot slower, and I'm going to let the machine go where it wants to go. And it's not happy because we're so close to a light, so we're going to turn that. And I'm going to stop it. And it doesn't want to stop, but it's going to. So that was getting caught on these two lights here, but it doesn't matter, it still looks like a nice little flower. And then let's push you in a bit and get some colour over here. Just confuse the machine then, but that's fine. Now, I think I've got enough stitching on there. So we've now got our stitching on there, and the next job will be to cut this down a little bit because we do have more in here than we actually need. So I'm just going to reduce this a little bit. Don't throw this away because you can use it for other projects. And now we're going to start distressing, so we'll just plug this in and thank you. Now if you've got a cocktail stick or one of those longer sticks, I recommend, if you haven't done this before, to use it. I know to keep my hands out of the way. If you haven't used one of these before, this is the hot end. Don't have your fingers in the way or touch it. I quite like this brand, but I don't know what they're called because there's no brand name on it. It just says Heat Gum. But there's two settings. Okay, so we're now going to distress this. And what we're going to do is keep it moving. So know where the end of your wire is, and we're going to heat it up. So there will be some noise now. think you may have enough on the front, flip it over and do the back. Don't worry about all these threads, we cut them off afterwards. Very satisfying. I'm now going to flip it over again. I can see where I want to do some more. When you think you've done as much as you want to do, just check with your lights if you're happy with that. And then you're ready to now make your lantern up. So I like to make sure that I haven't got straight edges, but just for the benefit of you seeing how this is done, I'm not going to fuss about it too much. So you now need your 2 rings, and you also need your sticky tape, and we are going to cover the rings. So starting at one end, or one side should I say, we're coming round the outside, and we're just going to go all the way round like so, and when we get to there we snip that off. Now while I'm doing this one, I just have a quick talk to you about the fact that we're using glues and the fact that we've just been melting a man-made fibre. In this room, it's a big room, so it's well ventilated. If you're doing it in a small room, make sure you've got all your windows open, or do it outside. Okay, if you start to feel a little bit ill, stop. Don't make yourself ill over it. It's really not worth it. Okay, so just make sure that that's stuck good and proper, as they say. This is really, really good double-sided sticky tape. And I have to say, Danars always give you more than you actually need. So, in your kits. So you will have it to use on other projects too. Then when you're ready, we're just going to take the red bit off, if we can get it off. This is the outer cover. So we're leaving the sticky bit on there, and that is now really sticky. Okay. So I'm going to pop that on there for a minute. I won't do that one just yet because we have to get our stick it on here. So do you remember we drew around this earlier? You see how much this has shrunk? So on the back of this is some paper. Get that off. It does help if you've got nails, of course. So just start it off. Now this is scored. I don't always do this at this point, but I'm just going to show you. Because it's scored, you will be wanting to get that off. Just bend it. Okay. And we're now going to take our paper off, and we're going to stick this on here. But first of all, we're going to get all these threads off because I don't want them showing through. Like so. Okay. Have we got them all off? And now we're going to stick this on. I've got a thread on there, look. And now we're going to stick this on. And I'm going to come about there. Okay. So this is the back of our work, not the front. And we only want to stick this middle panel down. We don't have to stick the rest of it down. I'm going to take them off because I don't want them. When you order a kit from Danelles, they will show you how to make it up. So you have one of these in with your kit. This is what we're making, is a lantern kit, and you have full instructions on how to do it. They also have on their website videos showing you how to do it. So I use this little tool and I just scrape that down to make sure I'm stuck good and proper in all those grooves. You can come off. Okay, and once again I am going to check. Do you know, that little bit of thread is determined to be in there. Check my lights again, because I have been pressing them quite a lot. This is my front, and we are now going to make a lantern. So first of all, get the second one off. Come on. Piece of paper off. This is the tricky bit. You might think, oh, I can't do that. But yes, you can. This has to line up with the side of that piece of sticky plastic you've just put on. And if you can get your fingers off it, we're going to roll it right along that edge. Okay. It's not always easy to see. That one's moved. Okay, there we go. Just encourage it over, making sure that we're staying on that edge. I have to turn it this way, otherwise I'm not going to be able to see where I'm going. If you worry that you haven't got it right, don't worry about it. Now when you come to this end, you can see that this isn't quite stuck. I am going to tuck that under. So making sure this is stuck and tucked in, and I'm bringing this edge over. And there we have it. And to make sure that that stays stuck there, I am going to put a tiny bit more of this across. You don't have to do it this way, it's your choice. But I'm going to pop a bit of that. You see it's in there, on there. Peel it off, peel the outer off, or try and peel the outer off. Come on. Doesn't want to. Okay. And then I am sticking that down. Okay. Now on this one, I distress the edge a bit more, but I'm pretty sure you're now getting bored with watching me. So then the next job is to tuck this in. So we're now going to put the base in, and we want to pop that in there, but we need to make sure that we don't pull that so that it disturbs the lights. And just checking once more, the lights are working. Take them off, push that in, try to keep it out of the way so you can see it's just pushed in there. And then you fold that to get it in. And once you've got it in there, just very, very gently push it into place. So you see, you can just literally push it down from the inside into place. Okay, so we have a nice base. And then you've already fold the top over like that, so it's all stuck in, and then we switch on our little lantern, and there we have it, a finished lantern. Okay, if you wanted to put this bit in, you just pop it in over the top of the one that's at the bottom. So here we have it. We've now got our two lanterns. Thank you so much for watching, and thank you for everyone who came to my workshops at the NEC. And keep your eye out, because there will be more Lutradur stuff coming.